The United States just experienced its warmest December through February time period on record and its wettest winter in nearly 20 years. While precipitation in Nebraska was the 9th most in history, Iowa logged its wettest winter since data began in 1895. Nebraska Extension's Kruger says the warmer weather has helped weeds get an early start. As corn and soybean growers prepare for the planting season, Greg says it's important they begin with a field that's weed-free. We recently talked with Greg about weed control in 2016.
This year we've seen a lot warmer temperatures a lot earlier than what we have in past years, and we're starting to see weeds already start to germinate in the fields this year. So some of our early emergers are already poking their heads out, and it's really time to start thinking about how we're going to manage those.
How soon do you need to get the control before planting?
Yeah, so we want to get out there certainly well before planting. We've had this quote, stay clean, or start clean, stay clean, and we want to stay there. We want to make sure that whatever's germinating early in the spring, that we've got it cleaned out by the time we've gone in there. What that means is two different things. One, we've got to come in with a burn down of some sort if the weeds are already germinating. So like kochia, and we've got to come in and use some sort of a post-emergence option to burn that down. But we also need to think about putting some sort of a residual product in that tank so that we get good control and keep that field clean as we start into planting season.
Let's go a little bit further on kochia and tell me why that's so difficult to control.
Yeah, kochia is a beast. It's an early emerger. It's a very aggressive weed, and once it starts to grow, we get 5-6 inches on it. It becomes very difficult to control with any of the herbicide tools we have. So, in our no-till systems, this weed is just one of those that it gets to us a lot quicker than most of the other weeds out there. As we've talked about in past years, we've got lots of herbicide resistance problems out there. Our favorite product, Roundup or glyphosate, has evolved resistance in this particular weed species. So our options are much more limited post-emergence, so that just adds more need to make sure we've got some sort of a residual in that weed control program.
You also mentioned marestail. How much more difficult has marestail been to control over the last couple of years?
Yeah, marestail is one of those challenging weeds. It's pretty much ubiquitous in the state of Nebraska, so we see it almost everywhere. We'll see it up in the sandhills, we see it in all of our corn and soybean fields out there, field edges, ditch banks. It's one of those that's popped up everywhere. It's definitely one of those weeds that loves no-till systems. We know that tillage systems tend not to have as much marestail problems because we bury that seed, but the no-till systems, it's one of those that's just about everywhere. And some of the research that we've done here recently, we found that 98% or more of the populations that we've collected from row crop fields are resistant to glyphosate. So if we have it in our corn or soybean fields, we've got a plan to manage it as if it was resistant to glyphosate.
Do you want to reinforce the techniques or the methods that would help you battle against resistance or try to prevent resistance?
Yeah, resistance management is definitely one of those things that we want to keep in mind as we're building these programs, particularly here in the spring when we've got lots of options. We can use some of those residual-based herbicides, and that's going to add new modes of action. It's going to add potential tank mix options that we won't have later in the year. So it's a good opportunity to start to get ahead on some of these resistance management strategies. Other things that we want to consider, if we can go into crop rotation, if we like continuous corn here in certain parts of the state, but if we can rotate something else into that rotation, it gives us some new herbicide options there. And like always, we want to look at how we implement our cropping system programs. Adding diversity to the program in any way possible is going to help us manage resistance.
The Crop Watch website has more information about weed control in 2016, including tips on calibrating sprayers and getting an early handle on kochia and marestail.